My grandmother kept a cigar box on the top shelf of her bedroom closet, and in 87 years of life, she never once let anybody open it. We all knew the box. It was the kind of thing you notice as a kid. Old, soft at the corners, a faded picture of a man in a hat on the lid. She kept it pushed all the way to the back, behind the hat boxes and the good linens, in the one spot in the house none of us could reach without dragging over a chair. And the rule was simple. You did not touch Grandma's box. Now my grandmother was the warmest woman I ever knew. She fed half the county. She'd give you the coat off her back and the last biscuit off her plate. There was no meanness in her, no secrets, you'd think. So the box never made any sense. We used to make up stories about it. My cousins swore it was money. I figured it was old photographs. My little sister was convinced, the way little sisters are, that there was a ghost in it. Once, I think this episode brought to you by Fifth Pour, where every bourbon bottle gets its story. Scan a bottle, read what other enthusiasts felt about it, and add your own. Every bottle has a story. Find them all at fifthpour.com. I was 9. I asked her straight out, "Grandma, what's in the box?" She was at the stove, and she didn't even turn around. She just said, "That's mine, honey. Everybody's allowed one thing that's just theirs," and that was the end of it. She lived a long time. Long enough to bury her husband, 2 of her brothers, and more friends than she could count. And near the end, when she was mostly in her chair by the window and the house had gone quiet, that box stayed right where it always was. None of us moved it. You don't with something like that. It would have felt like stealing. She passed in her sleep in the spring. And after the funeral, when the house was full of casserole dishes and people speaking in low voices, my mother and my aunt finally went and got the chair and reached up to that top shelf and brought it down. I'll tell you, the whole family crowded into that little bedroom. 40 years of wondering, all of us holding our breath. My aunt lifted the lid. Inside, there was no money. There were no photographs, not really. There was a child's hair ribbon, yellow, gone almost white with age. There was a hospital bracelet, the tiny kind, the kind they put on a newborn. And there was a single folded card, soft as cloth, from being opened and refolded 1,000 times. My mother read it, and then she sat down on the edge of the bed, and she couldn't talk for a minute. Before my grandmother married my grandfather. Quick pause. We make this show because we care about the things people used to do right, so it makes sense our sponsors do too. Captain's Krill Oil is run by somebody who refused to switch to the factory method. The whole industry uses chemical solvents now because it's faster. Captain still extracts krill oil mechanically, right on the boat, the way nature intended it. CaptainsKrillOil.com. Back in a sec. Years before, when she was barely more than a girl, she'd had a baby. A little girl who lived 11 days. Nobody in our family had ever heard a word about it. Not her children, not her husband, as far as anyone ever knew. She had carried that, alone, for more than 60 years in a cigar box on the top shelf, and she had never once let it become anybody else's grief but her own. And I think about that rule of hers now, all the time. Everybody's allowed one thing that's just theirs. We thought she was being mysterious. She wasn't. She was being kind. She had decided a long time ago that the people she loved would get all of her, all the warmth, all the biscuits, all the open doors. And the one piece of her that was nothing but sorrow, she would carry by herself so that none of us ever had to help her hold it. The ribbon, the bracelet, the little card she'd worn soft with her own hands. A whole life, kept in the one place she knew we loved her too much to look. We buried the things in that box with her. My mother thought she'd want them close. I don't know if that was the right thing to do. I don't know who that little girl was or what her name would have been, or how a person carries a thing like that for 60 years and still gets up every morning to feed the whole county. I don't know. That's how I heard it anyway.